Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. Domo, domo. Domo, domo. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, the podcast where Matt and Todd watch a Netflix movie from their top 10 list, and then we talk about it and discuss it, share our feelings with you, the listener, and hopefully everyone is happy. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and yes, welcome to this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies. Today we're going to be talking about the movie, a Netflix film called Outside the Wire. Came out just recently, came out this year, 2021.
Yeah. I don't think it. Yeah. Oh, okay, this year. Never mind.
Yep. And yeah, so there are robots in it, which is why
Yes.
Todd's intro is so perfect.
Yes. I felt good about it. I felt pretty pretty happy with myself.
Yes, you did good, Todd. You did good. So there are. It's a pretty small cast. There's a lot of empty streets in this movie with just a small amount of people. Um, the main two people are Anthony Mackie is the first build.
Yes.
He's been in a few things.
Good old Falcon
Notably,
from the Marvel movies.
right, right,
And possibly the new Captain America, depending on how the show goes.
possibly,
I have
yes.
no idea.
And then the other guy is a guy named Damson Idris, who I didn't recognize from anything else.
I didn't at all either.
Yeah. And the only other person who I recognized was Michael Kelly, who I don't know if he's been in a lot of stuff or he just has a recognizable face. But
Was he like the Colonel guy?
he was the Colonel Eckert.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I had the same thing. I was like, oh, that guy's been in some stuff. But always as like a side character or a bit actor. Nothing.
right, right.
Yeah.
So and that's really it. I think from people who are famous, unless you.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
recognize anyone in this movie.
Yep. So Anthony Mackie carries the day. Um, so what is this movie about? Well, it's set in the future. It's set in like the 2030s. So about
2036, I
I
think.
think you're right. Yeah. So about 15 years from now, or exactly 15 years from now.
That's just that sentence alone is crazy to me because when I think 2036, I'm like, oh yeah, that's way in the future. No, it's really not anymore.
Not really. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's just how time works, and I got to get used to it.
Time works in that it keeps on going. Yep. So yeah, so it's set in the future. This is sort of like a military story. You've got your drone strikes, and you've got some robotic soldiers who look kind of big and clunky, like you would kind of expect a robotic soldier to look like. There's some robotic dogs in this too. That uh,
Which never come into play, but when I saw one, I was like, hey, a robot dog.
yep, yep.
And then I waited for the robot dog to do something, and it did. You don't ever really see it again.
Right. You hear it growl once, and that's about it. But
Yeah.
um, so yeah, so getting into the story, Anthony Mackie's character. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that he is a highly advanced android soldier. So
I do not think it's a spoiler
he
to say
looks
that.
human. He looks like Anthony Mackie, but he's supposedly an android. And then Damson Idris's character, Lieutenant Harp, is a drone pilot. So he flies the drones from a secure location and launches missiles from them and stuff like that. Um, he gets into some trouble and they reassign him, and he ends up getting paired off with Leo, who is Anthony Mackie's character, the android, and they go outside the wire. They're in Eastern Europe. And they go out of the sort of secure compound that they're in, and they're out like hunting bad guys and trying to figure out this plot with nuclear missiles. And then the android predictably kind of starts going off on his own, and Lieutenant Harp has to figure out how to deal with that and try and save the day. And that's really it. It's, there's a few plot twists and turns, but um, those are the main components of the story. It's not a super crazy, detailed and complex story. It's more about like a story of soldiers and war, um,
Sure.
and then what happens when you toss in like artificial intelligence and um, robotic warriors, basically. So
Yeah, and it's like it's definitely one of those movies that's hard to really give an accurate description because you don't want to go too far into it for someone who hasn't seen it. Like,
right, right,
um, and that would be the twisty turns and all that kind of stuff that you're talking about.
yep. So so, what did you think of this fine film, Todd?
Well, I thought this was a pretty okay film. Like, I don't think it was like anything spectacular, but I don't regret watching it, which is always a good thing. One of my first impulses when I like what I watch. Really, honestly, I think one of the drawbacks of this movie is that I don't think there's much going on, um, acting wise. Like, kind of just felt like most people were just kind of there, doing what they need to do, but nothing really stood out to me of like phenomenal acting. Like, it wasn't bad. It just kind of felt like, just there. In my opinion, I don't know if you'll agree with that or not, but um, I guess Anthony Mackie and the other guy, who's kind of like the main character, have some pretty good rapport, a little back and forth and stuff like that. And then all the side characters, I just kind of felt like they were there, um, and not. I don't know. I mean, when you're not given a ton of screen time, I don't know how you really optimize all the time you can. But um,
Yeah, I felt like
at,
most of the side characters were really just there to be brutally assassinated, shot in the head, and then they're
yeah,
dead.
basically,
Happened a lot.
and yeah, and yeah. So I mean, like that. The acting being kind of maybe a little bit above par. The story I felt was really intriguing to me. So something that's important to the main character, who's not Anthony Mackie, who I forgot his name already. Something Idris, right?
Yeah, the actor is Damson Idris, but Lieutenant Harp
Idris.
is the character.
Okay, Lieutenant. I'll just refer to him as Lieutenant Harp here then. Um, Something that's interesting about his character is that being a drone pilot, um, he has never been in like I don't know, quote unquote real combat or whatever, and so part of the movie is about him being thrusted into the war zone that he's seen a ton of by flying drones, but he's never been in it. And so like that's kind of going on, and I feel like they did a pretty good job with that. But the final kind of I don't know act of this movie, there's just so many things going on, and you get I feel like it got boggled down with all these twisty turns. Like, this is happening. Oh wait, could this be happening? Oh no, maybe this is happening. Oh no, here's for real what happening and stuff like that. And I kind of almost with the movie Unknown, if that stuff's not tight and done really well, it's really hard to get a win. I think in that category if you're going to go that route. Um, And the ending to me kind of fell a little flat. Once you kind of when everything's said and done, and you see everything that's happened and stuff like that, I just kind of felt, yeah, it was, without being able to talk about it specifically, it just fell flat. Things kind of didn't make sense at the end. I was a little confused, a little frustrated with the route that they chose, but um, yeah, outside of that, there's some definitely some good action sequences in this movie, and it definitely makes you think about war zones, which feel like is kind of part of the story of the movie. Is people who get the innocent bystanders or collateral damage, as they say in the movie. Thinking about those people who are in war zones like that, which is something that happens today, definitely still all the time, and how people treat collateral damage and all that kind of stuff. So those are good things to think about. I think it's just a movie that's on par, maybe a little above par. If you're looking for an action movie, it's certainly not a waste of time. It's a little under 2 hours, and I would recommend anyone to watch it. I didn't hate it, and I didn't feel like my time was wasted. So that's always a good thing. But I think that's where I'm going to stop and turn it over to you, Matt. How did your spirit feel about this movie?
It's good. We don't often talk about how our spirits feel.
True.
Um, so I'll say that my spirit enjoyed the movie overall. Um, and then when I move outside of the spiritual realm, I get into the intellectual thoughts about the movie, which um, I thought I thought that they built kind of a cool world,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that really held my attention throughout the first part of the movie. I mean, you've got robot soldiers marching around and
Sure.
shooting and stuff like that, and then you have this some pretty cool effects with Anthony Mackie's character Leo as the android. There's some cool stuff with him. So some nice visual stuff um, at the beginning of the movie, and then I agree that the end of this movie is not very good. They kind of pulled their punches of what could
Right.
have happened, and uh, after a certain point in the movie, I also agree with you that I think things got bogged down with there's kind of too many possible plot lines and too many players
Yeah.
kind of vying for the same goal, but you don't really know exactly what's going on until almost the very end. So,
And then you're kind of let down.
and then yeah,
Yeah.
true story. Um, so I I I did enjoy the movie. Um, at the end of the day, like you, I wasn't sad that I watched it or anything.
Sure.
I thought the ending, like we said, should have been a little tighter, and the different plots should have been tied up a little bit better. But overall, an okay film. Like you
Sure.
said, an action film, and one that has a nice uh, big cinematic feel to it. Doesn't feel like it's a small made for the TV screen, although it was. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I'd say watch it, especially if you're looking for an action film. I think this checks a lot of boxes in that type of environment. So I would say, sure, give it a shot. Take a watch.
Take a watch. I have to say that one of the biggest things that bothered me about this movie, and it's not really a plot detail. I was debating whether or not I was going to go into it, but I feel like I need to because it really did bother me. Is that the U.S. government built a cyborg and stuff like that. It's supposed to be the most advanced thing, and it's supposed to be a combat soldier. Like they say that several times that this he is a combat soldier. He's built for combat. But they built this cyborg, and it seems like it doesn't like it's got a degree of super strength, and it's got a degree of like fast reflexes and stuff like that. But it doesn't have any kind of armor plating at all. Like even a knife could cut through like Anthony Mackie's robotic parts, and I was just confused by that. It just doesn't seem like you protected your investment. And sometimes weird things like that in movies I have a huge hang up about, and that was one of them. Like,
Yeah,
I was like,
I guess the counterpoint to that would be to say they really designed him to be almost a deterrent and be able to make peace. So they wanted him to look as human as possible. And so armor plating kind of would have gone against that if it was visible at all.
yeah, I mean, I think armor plating, I misspoke. Not armor plating, but you would think that whatever he's made of would be stronger than skin. Like, and it just didn't seem like that. Like,
No, that's
specifically a knife scene where it looked like it took no effort, and it looked like it was cutting through paper. Like, uh, and I was kind of blown away by that. Like,
yeah,
that's just me.
that's true.
Most people probably will have no problem with that.
Yeah,
But what can I say? I'm me, and I can't be anyone else. I'm just me.
that's true. We can't change into other people, at least with current technology.
Maybe one day.
Maybe.
How many? Um, yeah, I'll just keep it simple. How many drones would you give this movie between 0 and 5?
I'm gonna say this movie, my enjoyment level was a little bit above average for this, so I'm gonna give it 2.8 drones out of 5 on a scale of 0
Nice.
to 5.
Yeah, shame, Matt, because we're so close to being on the mark together. I have 2.7 in my mind.
Ah,
Like
okay.
like just
Well,
like two little notches above average, but so much, honestly, so much wasted potential. I feel like because they built a very intriguing world,
yeah,
and they started with a very intriguing story,
yeah,
and even some of the twisty turns, through the movie are fine, and you're still engaged, and you're like, oh, okay, and then the ending just falls so flat,
yep,
and you're like, oh, what a wasted opportunity.
agree.
So
So, well, so yeah, our review of Outside the Wire, our rating is on average going to be 2.75 um, drones out of 5, so slightly above average. I think we both said you should watch this movie if you're looking for an action film. And before we wrap
or
up,
if your thing is artificial intelligence, if that gets you going,
yeah,
why not?
yeah,
Yeah.
there's some of that to it too.
Doesn't have to be just action. If you're intrigued by, Eastern Europe warfare, then sure. Like,
Yep, that's part of it too. So, um, but yeah, before we wrap up, I will tell you, Todd, of about our next film that we're going to review,
all
which
right,
is
here we go.
called The Vanished.
The Vanished.
It's
Can you
called
read
The
the
Vanished. The
synopsis?
synopsis is they turned their backs for 1 minute. Dash. And a family camping trip turned into a terrifying nightmare.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
This seems like it could be like suspense with a little bit of like maybe horror or something like that.
Yeah. I think it's more of like a missing persons type thing, but I don't know. I'm only going off
Oh,
the
I don't know about that. That'll make me sad
yeah.
if
The,
things don't turn out well.
the picture that goes along with it is like some kind of sheriff and then two people who are obviously distraught and a news reporter trying to get a quote for her story. So
uh,
we'll see.
I mean, maybe it'll absolutely blow me away, but typically, missing persons movies can definitely end on not a good note, and then I'm just sad for the rest of the night.
Yeah, we'll have to see about how that plays in, but it is
Yeah.
the number 2 movie on Netflix today in America.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, our numbers for the podcast are definitely on the rise thanks to us doing the top 10 list instead of our top 100 list. So
Yeah, I'm
not going to
happy.
be
I'm happy with
yeah,
this
I'm not going to be
arrangement.
totally upset about that, but I also don't want to be sad when I finish a movie.
True. Well, if they
But
made
that's inevitable.
if
Not every movie has a happy ending.
this is true. This is true. So, well, thanks everyone for listening to our podcast. We're going to keep making them even if we can't go to the movies. We're making them in pandemic time
Yeah.
in our
We're
own
like
homes.
Jurassic Park because life has found a way.
That's right. Our podcast has found a way.
Yeah. So. Da 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 da
Da da
da da da.
da da da.